Did you get my hilarious text the other night? My
Which
voice memo?
Oh, yes.
About my motivational idea? And how amazing that would be?
Would you like to share it with the class?
No. No, not at all. No, I just thought that would be funny. You know, like you asked for challenges and God gave you a 2-pound Chipotle burrito. Like, you asked for strength and God answered with a 2-pound Chipotle burrito. Like, it really does fit all the descriptions, you know. Like you see people upload those videos. Like you asked for strength and God made you weak.
God only gives his toughest battles to his strongest warriors. Here's
yeah,
a 2-pound Chipotle burrito.
Here's a 2-pound Chipotle burrito.
Do you know
This will solve all your character flaws for you.
Sometimes when I tell people the jokes to our cold open, and I'm like, yeah, this really funny bit, people stare
They don't
at me
laugh.
like I'm crazy.
Yeah, they have no idea.
Yeah. Are we the only ones that find this funny?
No. Other people. I luckily have curated a friend group that will call me and tell me how funny these are. So I've surrounded myself with an echo well of people who will go, "Wow, Kev, you're silly and funny." I don't know if they're laughing with or at me, but I don't care to know anyway.
Could be both.
Yeah, could be both.
I know what it is, Kevin. They're laughing with me as we all laugh at you.
At me. Yes. See,
what
there
it
it is.
That's
See?
what it is.
And I knew that. That's affirming for me. That validates my entire life experience. Thank
Good.
you.
You know what today is?
What is today?
Today
Is the
day
30th of November.
It's the last day of November, which means
Tomorrow.
the nightmare of Christmas starts.
The Nightmare Before Christmas? I already watched that.
No. Good movie.
I already watched that.
No, I was at Dutch Bros yesterday getting coffee before work, and they're already playing Christmas music because it was the day after Thanksgiving.
All right. Give me your take on it. Go ahead. Hit me.
I hate it.
You've got thoughts.
I don't like Christmas music.
You don't like Christmas music or Christmas?
Well, both. But
holidays? Like what? Hit
all
me.
three.
Everybody engages with these differently.
I think Christmas music is repetitive and boring, personally. There are good Christmas songs. I'm not going to deny that. But for me, they don't do it.
Oh, yeah.
I just think that Christmas as a whole, the way I celebrated the holiday growing up and like the way the holiday was like shown to me, I don't like it.
Okay.
I'd rather celebrate Flag Day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like in December?
Yeah, I'd rather celebrate
You want to put Flag Day in December and be like, that's the day we all gather around.
Everyone else is opening up presents. I'm hanging up flags.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, you just got a bunch of flags outside.
Why not?
Just you and no trees?
No trees.
Just flags.
Just flags.
Great. I love it. That's awesome.
What's your opinion? Christmas music.
I feel like I have a very healthy approach to Christmas. All right, and you can tell me if it's otherwise. So December 1st, it begins
Tomorrow.
Everybody gets 25 days of like Christmas cheer and support from me. Right? Here's the thing. I'm on for and I tell everybody this. If you are playing music the day after Thanksgiving, pass. I will pass that day. However, December 1st kicks in. Go ahead. Play it to your heart's content. I know
agree.
I've only got 25 days. I'm fucking in. I'm on board. You want to do gingerbread lattes? Great. You want to make fucking gingerbread houses? Great. You want to do cookies and presents and Santa and like whatever it is? Yes, I'm in for 25 fucking days. However, the 26th, I am done. Like, I have some boundaries around Christmas and the holidays. And it's that, yes, for 25 days, I can give it to you, right?
Oh.
Kev gonna give it to you for 25 days.
Are you on the new DMX?
I am
app?
DMXing. I am DMXing Christmas for 25 days. And then it's done. That's it. And here's why it's done. Because there's a 1-day buffer window, and then it's my holiday, baby. It's my birthday, and fuck everything else that's going on. Christmas is done. You get a buffer day, and then you get to celebrate me, baby. Me.
You know what? Mad props to that one.
Thank you.
But I agree. I don't like the fact that Christmas music was the day after Thanksgiving. Like, it was too soon for me.
Here's what I'm saying. It's okay, but I'm not going to engage. It's fine if that's for you. I'm just not engaging until the 1st.
Well, you know that like a place like Dutch Bros, coffee chain on the West Coast, for those that don't know, for all you losers on the East Coast that don't have the majestic coffee shop that is Dutch Bros.
Like 5 years from now, it's just going to be another Dunkin' Donuts. They're mass-produced coffee. It's not high grade. Whatever. Okay, yeah, go ahead. Give us your hard opinion on a coffee chain.
Dutch Bros is the best, but
all right, go ahead.
It was definitely like it's corporate, right? Like it's just like it's like not McDonald's, Walmart, where like they have like their corporate radio station or whatever. Mm-hmm. So that's what it was. Like,
yeah.
Honestly, one of the people at Dutch Bro looked upset to be listening to it as well.
Okay, well, there's a thing that describes this effect of Christmas music, and it happens not to everybody because some people, like culturally, socially, personally, that's their thing. They love Christmas, right? Like you and I, we love spooky season. I can't tell you how many people in my life don't love horror movies. So I get people loving Christmas and I get people not loving Christmas, right? Like the season itself, right? The holiday season and spooky season. Spooky season is its own holiday season. I just happen to lean more into that one than I do to Christmas, right?
Absolutely.
So when it comes to that, I totally get, like, if somebody was playing fucking Christmas music around me yesterday, I would have been like, I'll see you later. And it's called the mere exposure effect, right? So the thing that ruins Christmas music is called the mere exposure effect. And that means that you can be exposed to something up to a certain amount, and then it goes from being, like, positive to then, like, you're relatively apathetic toward annoying, right? And, like, that's kind of how I feel like Christmas music is, because when you ask somebody, can you name, like, not like in a challenging way, but it's like, hey, can you name like 100 Christmas songs that are different? No.
Oh, that are different.
No,
I was gonna say,
you can't.
Jingle All the Way by Michael Bublé, Jingle All the Way by another artist.
Exactly. Well, but that's the thing, is everybody's covering the same 5 songs. And so, like, for certain people, once you've heard those songs 1,000 times, you're kind of, like, imagine if, like, I don't know. Imagine if, like, fucking, let's say May all of a sudden became Ariana Grande month, right? This is a really weird example, but let's say it becomes Ariana Grande month, right? And like, some people are super fucking on board with it and some people aren't. But, like, ultimately, every artist you know is all of a sudden playing Ariana Grande, right? Like, they're covering her songs. They're doing different versions. And so there's some variety to it, but inevitably, you eventually become so exposed to 7 Rings that it's annoying to you now. Like, even if you loved the song, even if it was your favorite song, eventually you can be so exposed to something that it's ruined, right? Like, we do this with music. We'll play it ad nauseum. We'll play it on repeat until... we'll play it ad nauseum, right? Like, that the literal term is to a point of nauseousness. Like, that's the mere exposure effect, and I think it just hits people during Christmas season. Not only that, like, that's a whole loaded conversation, because, like, I feel like if somebody doesn't like Christmas, like, they might even have a reason that's, like, way more personal and emotional too. You know, like, so I don't even ask people why they do or don't like it. I'm just like, look, you get 25 days, and then I'm done. Well, that's it. But I'm in. Look, hold on. Visual podcast.
That's great for an audio medium.
I got an ugly Christmas sweater already.
Oh, yeah.
Hold on, I gotta put my headphones back.
Oh, yeah, you can't
on.
even hear me. This is great.
I've got an ugly Christmas sweater, and it is Warhammer themed. it's the Adeptus Sororitas, but it looks Christmassy as fuck.
It works.
So I'm gonna wear this to so many Christmas events, and people are gonna be like, "That's a nice," except there's skulls on it, but they're gonna be like, "That's a nice Christmas sweater. What is it?" And I'll be like, "Oh, you asked what it is? Let me talk to you about the Adeptus Sororitas, you heretic."
Kevin, you know what my favorite song this time of year is?
What? Yep, that's about it.
Yep,
that works.
It's a jam. I'm just watching you struggle with your sweater.
Hold on. There, that's the best. That's gonna be for now. I'm not taking my headphones out again. You ready to clap?
I'm ready to clap.
3, 2, 1. Welcome back to another episode of the Unpop Podcast, where it is not Christmas yet. I am your Capitan Todo El Siempre. Tomorrow. I am your Capitan Todo El Siempre, Kevin Miner. With me, as always, is
Odie Matthews, the chef, cooking up that delicious content, they, them, and causing mutinies occasionally.
Occasionally. Not today, though.
No, not today. I'm not feeling
Okay,
it.
great. Odie, we came in with 2 hot topics, and then you're going to go see Wicked again. So we got to get through this shit. We don't have a lot of time to dilly-dally.
What? Sorry, I wasn't listening. What were you
We
saying
came
about
in with
dilly-dally?
2 hot topics. We can't dilly-dally.
Oh, you shop at Hot Topic?
I love Hot Topic.
You would.
Does it still exist?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's like, anyways, correct. So last
Hit me.
week, was it last week that you mentioned Arcane? Was it as your jam, I think?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
either last week or the week before. Season 2 came out. It's an artistic masterpiece of epic proportions. Go.
Well, so you told me to watch it. I binged all 18 episodes over the last 7 days.
Which is
It was last
wild,
week.
because that's like 14 hours.
Well,
But you're used to that now. You're like the way that like my squat max has gone up, the amount of TV you can binge has gone up.
yeah,
right?
Well, I mean, when you sit down and you watch five Spy Kids movies back to back,
Or 10 Fast and the Furious, 11 Fast and the Furious?
too many.
12 Fast and the Furious
Hang on, that
movies?
still gives me PTSD.
How
Let's
many?
not talk about
12 Fast and the Furious movies, 11 Fast and the
one
Furious.
bald Vin
One.
Diesel. I'm gonna make a whole.
It is
Christmas
Christmas,
song of Fast and the
apparently.
Furious for us.
There should be a Fast and the
I'm
Furious
gonna
Christmas.
make one.
12 car explosions, 11 Jason Statham's. I don't know, whatever.
But yeah, no,
Okay.
well, last weekend I didn't have anything to do. I was recovering from my Spy Kids video, so basically all day Saturday I was, dude.
You were recovering from Spy
okay,
Kids.
look,
Got it.
That's a long video. It's like an hour and 15 minutes. But if you guys want to watch any part of that video, watch, and it's timestamped. Watch the part on Spy Kids 4. That broke me into a million pieces. Mentally, physically, emotionally.
Because it's just wild.
Intellectually.
It's just wild.
It just broke me.
Okay.
But yeah, no, so it was really easy for me to watch. Like, I pretty much watched all of season 1 that Saturday and Sunday, and then just, made it a point to finish it.
Good.
This week. So I definitely want to talk about Arcane, but
yeah.
You watched Moana 1 for the first time?
Yeah, last night.
Damn. Okay, and then because we were
Never
originally
seen
going
it
to talk
before.
about Moana 2, but your schedule is too crazy to talk about Moana 2, so I'll save Moana 2.
No, you can talk about Moana.
Well, I'm going to talk about it in my jam, because it's going to be my jam. Because that's... I don't want to talk about it too much, because I really, like... It's hard to talk about Moana 2 without spoiling it, and I don't want
That's
to spoil
fine.
it.
You can spoil it for me.
I don't want to
It's
spoil
fine.
it.
We'll do the spoilers.
Well,
no, it's fine. I want you to talk about it.
Okay,
I want you to talk about it because it might take another, 5 years for me to watch that one. Who knows?
You shouldn't. It shouldn't. You should watch it sooner.
Okay, well, let's get right into Moana. Here we go. I liked it, but it's not like I didn't leave the movie going, "Oh my god, I can't wait to see the next one." Like I was like, "Oh, this is nice." Like it felt like a Disney Pixar film, and most of those I'm like, "Oh, you told a nice story. I don't need another." Like I don't need it.
That is totally fair because here's a little information on Moana 2, which there is a lot of criticism around Moana 2 right now. The music is not actually the music is just kind of bad, which is a letdown because the music
Kind of soulless.
Yeah, it feels like Lin-Manuel Miranda.
It's almost like it was unnecessary.
Well, okay, so because we're gonna but you're not wrong. Like so. He did the first one, and I would argue, and I will die on the hill.
I could tell he did the first one because there's that big rap bit in the middle, like the well, it's not even rap; it's like rhythmic speaking.
It's the rock.
He doesn't really to call Lin-Manuel Miranda's musical pieces where there's rhythmic vocals rap. I think is a little bit of a stretch. But
a little bit. It's the rock, so it sounds...
But to people who don't listen to rap music, sure. Sure, that's rap. Go ahead.
So he didn't return for the second one, and in my opinion, the second one, it feels like they're just... You watched the first one, like
they're
How Far
trying
I'll
to
Go
be
moment.
Lin-Manuel Miranda?
What?
Are they trying to be Lin-Manuel Miranda?
I don't know if they're trying to be him. I've seen some people say that they're trying to copy his music style. I think they just went, okay, here in the first one we had this big How Far You'll Go bit. so we're going to recreate that song and do it this way. Oh, in the first one, The Rock had a rap, so he needs to have a rap in this one. You know, in this one, the giant shiny crab who was a villain had one, so this villain needs to have a song.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It very much felt like, oh, well, it was in the first one, so we'll do it in this one, which leads into my point. So originally, Moana 2 was going to be an 8-episode, like 23 minutes a piece TV show on Disney Plus.
Oh, that sounds cool.
And it's very obvious to me, knowing that information going into Moana 2. It's very clear, like if you know
where each episode would have been.
You can kind of tell, like, okay, so this is where the first episode chunk would have been, and it would have been expanded. Here's where the second, and like you can tell that they were going to expand it out more. Because originally it was going to be a Moana TV show and then a Moana sequel. Instead, they took both of those and just smashed them together. Yeah. And for that reason, knowing that that's what this was, I think it's really good. Is it a worthy sequel? Yes, in my opinion.
Okay.
As someone who Moana is my second favorite movie.
As someone who's completely biased to Moana.
Yes. And you took the next words out of my mouth because I was gonna say Moana is my second favorite movie of all fucking time.
Wait, what's your first?
North by Northwest.
Oh, okay.
So
very different. Very different vibes there.
Very. Yeah. So I know that going into Moana 2, I was already biased. Like, the movie started and I started crying because I was just so excited to see the movie.
Wow.
So yeah,
like before it even started, you were just oh, that's nice.
Because Moana.
Sentimental.
Here's my 60 second. Okay, here's my 60-second why Moana is one of the best movies ever.
Go ahead.
Right now. So for one, I like the fact that she's not a princess, which is outside the Disney norm. A lot of people argue that she uses the help of men in the story to accomplish her goal. But she is kind of a princess.
She's not, right? Though. Isn't she gonna inherit?
She's the chief's daughter. She's gonna be a chief, not a queen. There's a difference.
All right. Genetic lineage to royalty. Check. Okay, keep going.
She's not a princess.
All right, but yeah. Keep going.
Some people argue that she needed a man's help because Maui helps her throughout the entire story. But my argument to that is, her objective was to find him, and he just still happens to be a male, but he's a demigod.
Oh, also, Maui's not a man. Maui is a demigod.
Well, that's my point, right? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, he's a demigod.
She uses a demigod's help. It doesn't matter what their gender is at that point. They're a powerful being.
Exactly. And
keep going.
So I feel like her mission in the first one was to find him and make him help her return the heart. And then you see the ocean is like, you're going to do this shit. Yeah. The ocean is manipulating both of them. Yeah. And I like that the ocean is a character, and it's even more of a character in the second one. It plays a bigger part.
The ocean has its own whims.
But Moana on the whole, she is still the one that is brave enough to sail past the reef, which she's never done. She's the one that's still brave enough to go track down Maui and convince him, and she's still able to escape the cave that he locks her in, and she follows him into the pit of monsters. And she throughout the entire story, it's not like Maui's constantly having to save her and rescue her. She's right there with him, diving headfirst into challenges and scenarios that she's never been a part of.
Yeah, they save and rescue each other.
And in the end, she's the one that ultimately figures out that Taka is Tahiti, and she returns the heart. Thank you, Tahiti. And everything is hunky dory at the end. And I agree. I think that Moana, and why I liked it so much originally, is because it is a complete story. It did not need a sequel. It did not need a follow-up. I think a TV show follow-up would have been a good way to do it, because you would have had more time to explore the world and flush
and
things.
Also it's for kids.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too with Moana 2. There's a couple moments, and Goose, my partner, we saw it together, and they were like, oh yeah, this moment really bothered me because it's so stupid. And I'm like, well, that to me is clearly a moment that was ripped straight from Disney Plus. There's a moment where they have to take something down with a spear, and they lose 4 spears in a row, through goofy.
Oh, that's funny.
And
I like
very much that was clearly so. Moana 2 ultimately continues the through line of Moana 1, where she is out of her element, and she is learning, and she is developing, and she is growing. And this one gives her a small crew of 3 extra background characters that all kind of play their part in helping her mature, and she has to she has the weight of other people's lives as her responsibility on this, because the whole point of Moana 2 is she has to cross the ocean in this extremely dangerous part to reach an island to reunite all the the people of the ocean, kind of. It's a really beautiful story, in my opinion. It just It's not as fleshed out as it could have been. Yeah. The music is not as good, but I do really like how they expanded the relationship between Moana and Maui. I like how they gave her a little sister, and I like that dynamic is really cute and funny. And I like that at the end, major spoiler, when everything kind of how in the first one starts to go wrong and you're not sure if they're going to like be able to succeed, she ultimately figures out how to save the day again without the help of Maui. Like, what I like about Maui is he's introduced as this demigod who, you know, created these islands and made coconuts and created fire and did all these things for humans. But in both of these stories, he plays a very small part in accomplishing the goal. He really is just a distraction in both of them because he does the same thing in the second.
Well, it sounds like the second is a careful reshelling of the first.
It kind of is.
Give the bad guy a song. Maui can be a distraction. I mean, she's actually going to solve it herself. Let's introduce one new character. Oh, by the way, Hey's here for everybody who's going to show up for that.
Oh, my God. Hey.
That's it. Like it's I mean, that's what it sounds like. So like,
I mean,
like I said, I'm not in any rush to go see it.
And I think that the second one, I think that if you liked the first one, or
it was fine.
I mean, I would recommend seeing the second one, but I'm recommending
it. Bad.
I'm recommending the second one as somebody who, again, I know I'm biased, but I think it's really fun, and I had a really good time in it. And you're right, though, it is a complete rehash. Like, there is, like, you could easily storyboard both of these and be like, well, this is the same and this is the same. But I think that, again, and I'm giving it a little bit of a pass, and I'm acknowledging that because given what it was supposed to be, and they like basically about halfway through the show, they were like, actually, let's not do this as a show because something else came out on Disney Plus that like bombed. That was like a show that was from a movie or whatever, and they were like, well, let's just retool it as a movie and we'll throw it out in theaters. And it
that's most things with Disney now. They're like, let's try it as a show.
They learn all along the wrong lessons.
Yeah, they do.
But
well, it's because they're a corporation. They just care about the bottom line, baby.
For the sake of time and the fact that you didn't see Moana 2, and I don't want to just sit here and like recap everything that happened, it's good. If you
I thought we were going to recap the first one before we even talked about it because I just saw the first one for the first time.
Well, the first one's 8 years old, Kevin, so...
Well, I thought we were going to recap it. That's why I watched it.
Funny enough,
I was like, I should probably know something.
Moana 1 came out on November 23rd, 8 years ago.
Yeah. And I saw it yesterday.
Nice. It's good. I think the first Moana is really, really, really solid in my opinion. I understand it's not for everybody. I mean, I feel like I've had the same argument for Moana that people that really love Frozen have. Like, it's a movie, and if you love
you're
it,
sentimentally attached to it.
And like, if the movie means a lot to you and you get a lot of good messaging, like that's all that really matters. Like, you don't have to love Moana the way I do, but you should.
Most people have a favorite Disney movie, and actually, so my favorite Disney movie is Emperor's New Groove. Period.
That's a great one.
Like that's that's my favorite Disney movie.
That's a great one.
So, but when I was watching Moana, I was watching the Maui character, and I'm like, this personality is just a rehash. Like I'm seeing a lot of the, like, at least the way that it was written, maybe not the way that it was played, but I'm like, oh, he's Cusco. Like, he's out for his own selfish needs. Like Cusco, no parents, right? Little to no guidance, very selfish, just out to do things so that he can earn the love of people, even though he doesn't recognize that, like, necessarily at first that people don't really care about him, and it'll never be enough as the emperor. Like, and then you've got Maui, and he's like, yeah, I did all these things for humans because I was trying to fill that void, but it was never enough. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I get this. But like the big thing that, one, there wasn't a ton of music in it. Like, it felt like, I was like, oh, there's like 4 songs. Like, yeah.
It's pretty spaced out.
There's no songs. Well, there's only a couple like smaller bits of music in Emperor's New Groove, right?
Oh, you're talking about that one. I think
No, Moana. Yeah, there's only like 4 songs.
Well,
but then, so the big thing in Moana, so my big takeaway is, like, when I watched it, I was like, okay, cool, this is fun. Yeah, it's a little bit different. She's the chief's daughter. Like, in my mind, I'm like, she's still, genetic line to nobility. Like, that's, Disney did a very good job of going, she's not a princess, quote unquote. Like, like that was their way around that. Like, it's fine. So she's not a princess. She goes out beyond the reef, even though her parents tell her not to. And from that point forward, it's really just a classic hero's journey with like some different twists on it.
Very much so.
I like the Kakamora. Though that's probably my favorite part of the entire movie is the coconut people. They show up for a brief bit.
They're in the second one a little bit more.
good, because they caused a bunch of chaos, and I really enjoyed it and wished that went on longer. Like, I was like, oh, they'll come back later. Because they can repair those ships, and they didn't.
I like that in the second one, you actually get more information about them, too.
Yeah.
So they do a little bit more world fleshing. Coconuts were
That's cool. Yeah, I like the coconut people. I like Hey Hey. I actually, here's my big takeaway from Moana. I just don't like The Rock as a voice actor. Period.
That's interesting.
Like, just don't.
I think I like him more as a voice actor than I do in live action.
I like him the same, which is not much. Not much.
That's totally fair.
He just just even the song "You're Welcome." I'm like, I'm hearing it, and I'm like, you're not selling this, man. Like, this is not the performance you think it is. Like,
I think that one's actually pretty good. I think that, truthfully, though, I mean, hands down, the best song in that entire movie is How Far I'll Go. Like, that is just...
Great song. Great song.
That is what... Yeah.
Well, it's the song that the movie was... like the crux of the movie is based around that idea, right?
It's a great
and
message.
then it even plays the theme at the end of the movie. Yeah. So like, but the big thing about this is, and what really struck me as I was watching it yesterday, because like there was the advertisement for Moana 2, but then recently there have just been production pictures of The Rock in
the bodysuit,
to play the Maui in the live action. And I'm just like, are you just cash grabbing off this franchise right now? And then with you saying that the songs in the second one are not as good and Lin-Manuel Miranda didn't come back, I'm like, yeah, this is a cash grab. This is pretty classic cash grab from a company that's like, it was 8 years ago, but we can cash in on that. People like that.
Half. I think that part of it is a cash grab for sure. But like I said, they were already planning to make a show and a sequel. So I think that the plan was always there to make this. I think that the way they did it turned it into a cash grab, if that makes sense.
Well, I think making a show and then also releasing the live action, there's got to be something with The Rock here. Because I feel like he's been in a bunch of things that have bombed, right?
So
he's not doing well. He sucks in the DC universe. He didn't make it into Marvel. He's got like, what are the things that he's cashing in on? He comes back to the Fast and the Furious franchise. He goes back to Moana. Like, he's going back to these things that worked for him when he was at his peak, right? So like, he's like, oh, maybe I can recreate some of that glory that I used to have.
Well, I think that if I remember correctly, he signed his production company signed something with Disney, and everyone was like, "Oh, he's going to be in Marvel." But you are 100% spot on, because everything he's been in and all of his franchise have bombed. And I've listened to people make the comparison that like Schwarzenegger had Terminator. Who's the other big action star from that time period?
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Like, all of those action
Jackie
stars,
Chan.
like Arnold
Jet
Schwarzenegger,
Li.
they all have their own franchise, right? Like, Arnold has
Yeah.
Predator and Terminator, and, like, everybody has...
Arnold doesn't have Predator. Arnold has one Predator movie.
I'm trying to think of who the other example was. That
Arnold has
Stallone.
Terminator.
It was fucking Stallone.
Stallone has Rocky.
Schwarzenegger has Terminator, but, like, The Rock kind of had, Jumanji kind of for a second.
Not really,
but
though.
like, it's more of an ensemble cast movie.
Yes.
Like, none of his franchises have worked, and I personally think that a live action Moana is going to ruin the magic of the first one.
100%. He's also not a good singer, period. Like, that's what I was really getting into. It's like, I'm not like, the dude can juice up all he wants and go beyond like Ballers and try to be like this. He's just, you can see him trying to be this, like, he's trying to find the niche where he'll be remembered forever.
Yes.
But then, like, dude, if you want to be remembered for this fucking movie, go take some vocal lessons. Like, you have so much money. Well, like, just go take a couple lessons, bro.
I mean, the biggest problem with The Rock is the fact that he does these $250 million movies like Red One and Jumanji and stuff, and then they don't do well because they're bad.
Red One looks horrible.
Red One, I have been trying to figure out if I want to go see it or not.
It looks horrible.
It looks terrible. And, like, here's the thing. And I was thinking about this because I did Babylon AD on Magnum Opus, and I was thinking, I dove into Vin Diesel's early career. And The Rock used to be so much fun to watch in, like, Walking Tall, The Rundown. Like, Scorpion King's not the best, but, like, he was good in it. Like,
he was cool in Scorpion King.
His earlier movies, he, like, Race to Witch Mountain, like, he was so much better as an actor. And his movies, on the whole, I'm not saying the ones I just named are all great, but, like, they were all like way more enjoyable than watching Red 1 or Jumanji Welcome to the fucking Jungle or Jungle Cruise. He needs to get out of the fucking jungle. He needs to get out of the jungle.
Well, now everybody knows that he has that stupid clause in his contract where he can't lose a fight. So it's like it's kind of like that literally removes the suspense from movies that he's in. Yeah, it's boring. It's so boring. Like and not only but going back to like the Moana thing, he was probably the part that I cared about the least. Like, I'm not going to say I didn't like him, but I'm going to say, like, I probably cared about, like, his performance the least. Like, everything else that was going on. Like, I was more interested in, hey, Moana, Jermaine, is it Clements, right? From Flight of the Conchords. And actually, you can hear the other guy from Flight of the Conchords in the background of that song singing backup. Like, that was so good.
Shiny.
Like, that's a good song. That part, that song, and not only that, you can tell that the writers went to him and they're like, hey, do you want to contribute to this a little bit? Because it has his style of comedy is imparted on that character, and it literally breaks up the film because it's like right toward the middle. So that whole piece of that quest literally breaks up the entire film in a really nice way because it's like, oh, yeah, we're taking a little detour. We're going to get this hook. But after that, then we'll get back to the main storyline, even though like the hook's essential to it, but like it's a MacGuffin, right? And so taking that little detour down to the lair of the monsters and seeing this giant crab that's just like, I'm going to eat both of you. And then he fails at it and he's like, but did you like my song? Like, I was like, all right, cool. That was good.
And that's the magic and the charm of the first one. I am ready to talk about Arcane if you are, just because of time.
Yeah, let's do it.
Why don't you, while I grab my coffee that I had delivered because I woke up 5 minutes before we're supposed to start recording.
From Dutch Bros?
No, because Dutch Bros doesn't deliver because they're classy. Lame. Why don't you recap the overall plot of Arcane and I'll be right back.
Okay. We didn't even recap the overall plot of Moana. We didn't do that. Odie just jumped in ready to give me a review, but didn't want to review Moana 2. That was very... What a bait and switch we had this morning. All right, Arcane, it's a visual and character design masterpiece. Also, as far as the writing goes, very well layered. I think Arcane does a great job of handing you visually something stimulating that can bring your attention to it and keep you locked in, at least from an artistic standpoint, but then layering it with heavier and more emotional dialogue and themes. So thematically, Arcane ends up being like this, like, overall piece of art, right? So thematically, huge piece of art, like wonderful. Like I would use the word masterpiece. But then as far as visually, it's action-packed, it's fun, it's entertaining, it gets dark and gritty at some points, but ultimately, the whole idea behind Arcane is the first scene we're shown a mother and child, and the child and mother are about to die in a snowstorm, and a hooded figure comes along and hands the child a rune, and that rune then gives us a glimpse of all this crazy stuff that's about to happen. And then we pick up in the city of Piltover with two separate sides of Piltover, and there's obviously a lot of tension. Like, and you can even see it once again going to the notion that this is visually a masterpiece. You can actually, even when you're looking at it in broad daylight, you can see the two sides of this city, right? It's a tale of two cities, the classic. They got it's the best of times on the left in Piltover, and it's the worst of times on the right.
It was the best of times, it was the worst of times.
Exactly. So, like, that's going on all at once, and we see, like, there's two children who become very important to the story. But ultimately, I think to paint the idea of Arcane, what it really comes down to is thematically the story is about the idea of pursuing your dream, right? And what that costs, what the consequences are for pursuing your dream, regardless of what that is and regardless of how good your intentions are.
Yes. Okay, so cool. I want to say this up top real quick. And I know you don't always love when I'm not trying to throw us off in terms of, like,
don't jump around. We did it with Moana. You jumped right into the second one.
Well, because I thought we were talking about the second one, to be fair, because the first one came out again 8
I
years
told
ago.
you I watched the first one.
Yes. Okay, so real quick, Max, you wanted in the recording studio, and now you
puppy.
Oh my god. Anyways, okay, so I originally finished watching Arcane, and I was like, that was really, really good. but I'm not sure how I feel about it. So I let it marinate, and I was like, yeah, it was fine. Like, and I started to pick it apart, and I was like, well, I wish that this would have happened. And I think that, like, maybe this could have happened. And the more I did that, right, the more I started to have conversations with myself, and I started to kind of, like, realize that a lot of the things that I was complaining about were intentional, and the more I like complained about them to myself, the more I saw how they connected and how they fit into the story, and the more I was literally talking myself out of my complaints. Now I am at the point where I can't stop thinking about Arcane, and I'm about to watch it again.
It's an artistic masterpiece.
It's fucking incredible.
Yeah,
like,
thank you.
And,
all right.
Yeah.
When you first got done, you told me it was fine. I was like, I disagree. Like, immediately just like, I disagree with you, sir.
Oh,
I thought we were going to come in and talk about that. But
a few people were like, it's incredible. And I was like,
yeah, what are you talking about? It's amazing.
And as we go through it, because I'm not going to jump around, but as we get to the points
don't jump
where
around.
I was like, oh, here's where I had an issue and here's how I solved it.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I think the show does really, really well, maybe one of the best I've seen in a really long time.
Or
is
ever.
Parallels. Oh my God, I loved.
It's so good.
I love parallels.
It's so good.
Love parallels.
All right, so I was explaining in the beginning, you got a mother and a child in a snowstorm. At first, it seems like kind of like, oh, what the fuck is going on here? What is this? But then when it comes back way, way, way later, like almost 18 episodes later, you're like, oh, shit. No, that was actually, they gave us the most important moment of the entire show. Right in the beginning. And they just drop it. Yeah. They're like, here's something. Here's something. And then we're going to go to the city of Piltover, and the city is so shiny it literally distracts you from everything else that like was given to you in the very beginning. And you're like, and then later, like when it comes back around, it's amazing. So I'm going to control the way that we go through this.
Yes, please do.
Okay,
because
cool.
you know more about Arcane than I do.
In the beginning, you're handed the most important characters in the beginning via a heist. It's a heist from some poor kids, Clagger, Powder,
Milo,
Vi, and another friend of theirs.
Milo.
I forget who it is. Who?
Milo,
who becomes an Echo later.
Nope.
Right? No.
You're thinking of Little Man.
Yep, Little Man. All right, so there's Little Man, and then, so the heist is going on, and you've got these 4 kids, and they're trying to steal something, right? And then Jinx, or Powder, who becomes Jinx, discovers this little, like, special blue ball, right? And it causes an explosion, and that ends up, like, sparking all of the events that take place during this. Yeah, everything takes place. There are 2 inventor characters, and so I think it's really important to point out Vi and Jinx in this is actually the first time this has happened that I know of. Fans from the game who were already attached to these characters want the story of Arcane to be canon over there because it's not yet. And so they're like, no, we want that to be the canon now. We don't want what's canon in the... Yeah, well, because the game... This whole show is based off a game that is one of the most popular games in the entire world. It generates a ton of revenue. There's literally professional teams of people that play this game.
Monopoly.
And they did such a good job leaning into Uncle Pennyworth or whatever the fuck his name is. No, so they did such a good job of leaning into the themes of the game without hammering you over the head with them, like actual special moves, the way that characters behave, that people who love the game had no complaints, which is really fucking
wild.
Rare. Yeah, the only complaints that you would hear are like people are like, I wish this character was in it. It's like, well,
pretty
they
toxic
couldn't be.
Fandom too, so it's kind of surprising.
It's pretty crazy. But so you've got these characters that are beloved over there that have kind of these vague backgrounds where like they've been learning about them over in the game world and like the way that they all interact and stuff, but their backgrounds are different over there. Like all of the characters we're about to talk about have different backgrounds in the game world than they do in Arcane. Arcane is so well written, and it actually has one of the previous writers from Warhammer came over to Riot Games and worked on this. He's phenomenal. He wrote one of the darkest and most disgusting books ever, the Demon Kulaba, for Warhammer. But he also wrote The Last Church for Warhammer. Well, he helped oversee The Last Church for Warhammer, which is like one of the biggest pieces in Warhammer lore. So this guy comes over. He's working on this. We've got Vi, Powder, Jace, Victor, Caitlyn, Mel, and then Little Man, who becomes Echo. And these
Let's
are
just call him
probably
Echo.
these are all we'll call him Echo. So these are the most important characters.
Vander. Did you say Vander?
Well, Vander's important, but he becomes anyway.
Yeah, I just want to make sure because he is technically important.
He's important, but not the same way that Vi and Jinx are. So we've got these characters, and this is where the world is kind of painted around. The two most important, I would actually say, end up being Jace and Victor.
Absolutely.
Right? So
I agree with that.
Yeah, so this is, and what they're doing is the entire first batch of episodes, the first 3 that came out, all they're doing is that was pretty much the prequel. Like, they were giving you the background story on each of these characters so that you could understand why they operate the way that they operate. And then over the course of the following 15, they develop how the aspirations of those characters and the way that they operate within the world end up changing the world around them for the better and for the worse. Not one or the other, both always. And that's where the show really shines. There's no action or significant event that happens without both positive and negative consequences. And sometimes the negative consequences aren't for one of the characters, but are for another one. And that's where I think this is like the masterpiece that it is, because it gave us a plethora of perspectives, and one of them is always feeling the brunt of another's decisions.
Yes. And I also kind of like, at least this is how I interpreted it, I feel like for me, up until probably the last 2 episodes of the entire series, I wasn't sure who to root against. Not root for.
Well, there's nobody to root against.
Well, that's why I'm saying, like, I say root
maybe
against.
One person.
Well, like, I'm not going to say who, but, like, it becomes clear to me, like, who I'm rooting against. And because, like, I'm not really rooting for anyone, but, like, there are people that I'm like, I don't want you to succeed. I don't really want these other people to win, but I definitely don't want you to succeed, kind of thing. And I really like that because I think it plays really well into what you're saying, where no matter what happens, like the moment you said, oh, everybody's decisions have like positive and negative for, you know, certain people.
It's both.
Like there's so many like moments that flash through my head that are like great representations of that, which is why I think it leans into like, I think you can have a favorite character, and like I've talked to people that are like, yeah, this is my favorite character, and like I know that they, you know, become this or they do this, and like, you know, they're not great anymore, and I'm like, like my favorite character is Echo, and like they're
that's
not
mine
even perfect.
Too. Yeah, no, that's mine too.
Really?
But okay, yes, I love Echo.
Yeah, Echo's great.
But so what's really interesting is they do the same like 1-2, like the same bait and switch with the importance of characters that they do with the overall like point of the show and the most important moment from the beginning as well. Like, so in the first season, arguably the 2 most important characters are actually Vi and Jinx, because what we're doing is we're seeing how every single character's choices negatively affect or positively affect the way that Vi and Jinx are striving for having a family in an oppressed version, in the oppressed portion of Piltover, right? Now, in the game, Piltover and Zaun are already 2 separate cities, right? They once were a city. In the show, it's just Piltover in the beginning. They have the lanes, and then they've got like the up top, right?
Yeah.
So that's how it's separated in the show, and it becomes more separated as time goes on. I would say we can do spoilers now.
I would say so.
Yeah. Wait, before we do spoilers, overall, how do you feel about it? What'd you like the most? Anything that you want to highlight?
No, I think that the reason. So my biggest highlight is going to come towards the end.
Okay.
So I'm going to wait, but there was one moment at the end, episode 7 in season 2, where I think the more I think about that episode, and I actually rewatched that episode when I was like,
that's the first one in the last batch.
Yes, and I think that is the moment when a lot of things, when I think that's the moment when I really started to love the show, because I'll be the first to admit it was really hard for me to get into it at first.
Yeah.
It was really hard for me to like, because I am used, and we talked about this a little bit, and I think it adds a little bit of weight. So here's my thoughts. You know, you're not supposed to like any of these people. Like, you're not really supposed to root for any of them. They're all kind of doing selfish things. They're all like not like, nobody really is a true hero.
I don't think it's that you're not supposed to. I think it's that even if you are rooting for someone, the show shows you their negative characteristics,
That's a great
their
way
flaws.
Yes, that is perfect. And I think because of that, it took me a really long time to get invested, because it's hard to get invested into a character that's not making decisions, like that make a decision that you're like, oh, I like that decision, and then they make a series of decisions where you're like, what the fuck? Yeah. You know? But, you know, the more I think about that and the more things started to kind of connect, the more I really started to enjoy that aspect. So if anybody else struggles with that kind of thing, definitely keep going with the show is what
you got to stick it out.
Yeah, you got to, because I think that you, like, the first 3 episodes are a prequel, very much so. And it
Well, there's no superhero in the show. And the thing that I probably like the most is I like the way that the character development is shown relative to the overarching theme of the show. Couple more things right before I do the spoilers, but like from the get-go, I was into the show, but it's because it starts out with fucking Imagine Dragons just crushing they crush that intro. That is an amazing intro.
Yeah.
And like even just the lyrics are very telling, and like it was like just from the get-go I was like, okay, I'm into this. Like, I don't know, I knew nothing about League of Legends, I knew nothing about Arcane. I was just like, I went in blind and I was like, all right, I'm already loving everything that's going on here. I love the way that they show Piltover and what eventually becomes On. I love, once again, like you were saying, the parallels, but most of all, the thing that I love is that this show continually put in elements that, as you peel back the layers of it, give you more. I think this show did the opposite of what a lot of shows do. Instead of trying to be a really heady show and then just becoming a flashy piece of animation, what they did was they gave us the flashy, artistic, amazing animation, but then beneath that is, like, if you're willing to dig for it a little bit, is a very intellectual show.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Arcane spoilers. Here. Spoilers! All right, so what do you think?
You just asked me this question.
Yeah, overall, okay, so overall, big thing that I wanted to point out in the beginning, the bait and switch that they do, Vi and Jinx being the most important thing, because what they're really getting into when they're all younger, because there's a big time skip, right?
Mm-hmm.
In
like
between
7
the first,
years, I think.
Yeah. This show was released in batches of 3 the entire way. So, like, even in the first season, it was like 3 episodes, then you had to wait a week, then 3 episodes, then you waited a week, then 3 episodes. By the end of, so what happens in those 3 episodes, we see Jace is an inventor, and all he wants to do is prove himself to be like this smart, beloved person. Like, you can see him, he looks up to the statues of the other adventurers. He thinks that the whole world could be perfect if only he could fix it. Similarly, Victor, who is kind of his parallel, his counterpart, Victor sees the flaws of the world and wants to cure those, because that's his version of fixing the world. He sees Victor is able to see what Jace isn't. Jace is an optimist. He's been handed everything. He's kind of a golden boy. Everything comes to him on a silver plate. People love him. He's well represented. Victor, on the other hand, sickly, not really paid attention to, like kind of discarded by the intellectuals of the city. And then between the two of them, you have Heimerdinger, who admits very early on that he has seen a lot of students fall or die or, just burn out quick.
Yeah.
Heimerdinger admits in the beginning that he is a flawed character in the show, and I love that he grounds himself in that way. Then we have Caitlin Kierman, who is her family is one of the controlling families in the city. The thing that she kind of inherits is a desire for control. She sees control as a way to balance out the world that exists. And then on the opposite side, with no balance, no control, seeing the flaws of the world, we have Vi and Jinx, right? So Caitlyn, Vi, and Jinx become the opposite of Caitlyn. in that Caitlyn is an only child. Well, yes. She's the only child of that family that we're paying attention to, whereas Vi and Jinx have a broken sisterhood, right?
Yeah.
How am I doing so far?
Good.
Eventually what happens is there's a huge accident that splits up Vi and Jinx. Like this, Vi calls Powder a Jinx and leaves after this giant explosion that like really fucks up everybody's world.
Kills
and
their
this
dad.
Yeah,
killed their friends.
Quote unquote kills their dad, kills their friends, right?
I mean, yeah.
And Jinx takes this on herself, and in the moment where she could break because she's being abandoned by the one last person that she actually has in the world, this guy comes along, his name's Silco, and here's where you said you like the parallels. I really like this. When we get Silco's backstory, he was made in water, like he was drowning, right? When we get Jinx's backstory, Jinx was made in fire, the explosion. What are Jinx's tattoos? Water-like tattoos. What's her hair? Blue. What are Silco's defining characteristics? An orange eye. We literally have these people who have color-coded symbols that are the opposite of what made them, the element that made them. And when they combine, and in a lot of the scenes that they're in together, there's this washed out, almost greenish color the entire time. So, like, even just down to the details of the color, the artistic team and the writing team the entire time are going, hey, did you pick this up? Did you get it?
No, I'm colorblind.
Oh yeah, well sorry. But yeah,
no,
so
but
like
that's cool. That's cool to know though. Like
yeah, so even there, like they're giving you the parallel.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then later on we've got, Jinx's there's a small time skip after the big explosion scene, and we move forward, and Jinx now is an anarchistic henchman of Silco. Vi is I think she's in prison in the beginning of that part.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the sheriff who works for Silco, who's evil, he not evil, but is working for the bad guys because he doesn't have a choice.
Yep.
Takes Vi and puts her in prison to save her, kind of.
Pretty much, like to save her from Silco, essentially.
Which I do like that Silco. I guess okay. I'll wait because we're not there yet.
Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say I like that you do find this out later, but I do like that like Silco was a normal person who worked with Vander. And speaking of parallels, like I do like that him and Vander were shown as brothers, and I kind of got the vibe, and maybe I'm looking too much into it, but I kind of got the vibe that Vander and Silco could have been what Jace and Victor became. Like, yeah, I feel like they both wanted to fix the what is the Zon? What they basically wanted to create.
Piltover.
Yeah, they basically wanted to take their it's not the is it the Underdark? No, that's
whatever, the Undercity, whatever.
Undercity.
The lanes.
Yeah, the lanes. They wanted to take the lanes and, they wanted to create this paradise and fix the problems and, like, show the world that, they're not this scummy, poverty-stricken area of this, like, wider, richer town. And I feel like that is, like, the Victor, Jace kind of have that same relationship that, like, they were just one bad day away from becoming Vander and Silco to some extent. Yeah. And I think that really shows in the last 3 episodes of the entire show. But I do like that you find out later that Silco and Vander were there with Vi and Jinx's mom. So, like, when you learn that, it makes the whole relationship between him and Jinx have another layer. Yeah. So.
Well, and Vander very much is both of their... So, Vander represents, in their minds, the completed family unit, right? Silco comes in and is essentially stepdad, but only to one of them, right? So, like, so Silco actually represents the broken family unit. Once again, the themes of this show, as you dig into it, there's so much more to talk about, and I know you have to go soon, so let's jump ahead. What we end up having are a series of, and I'll just get to what I think the majority of the show is about. There's a big quote where in the second portion, in the second batch of these, the second season, Victor is talking to Jace, and he talks about the price of perfection is actually the loss of pursuit. He says that there is no price to perfection. What it is the loss of pursuit. And that ends up being, in my mind, that was the quote that ties, it's literally the knot, the Gordian knot that ties everything in this show together. That moment's so huge, and it's not... There's no swelling music. There's no big reveal in that moment. It's literally just a conversation between these two people who, it turns out, you've seen the entire time, right? So when he says that to me locked the show in. I was like, oh, okay, got it. Because what's happening in the show? Everybody's looking for the perfect version of the thing that they're trying to fix, or they're looking for the perfect version of the thing that they already exist in. So they're either exercising control, or they're revolting against the thing that's controlling what they think they need to fix. Right? That's the entire show. Like, Heimerdinger's trying to make a better world. Jace is trying to make a better world. Vi and Jinx are both trying to complete this portion of themselves that exists within a broken family unit. Caitlin Kierman is trying to create the best version of Piltover based on what she's learned as a kid. Mel Medarda is trying to exercise her own form of control to get away from her past. Her past eventually shows up in the form of her mother, Amarda, right?
Mbessa.
Or whatever. Mbessa Medarda. So Mbessa shows up, and she's just like, I would say if there's anybody who actually is just like the bad guy in the show, it's Mbessa.
Like, until she starts to really show her true colors, I didn't know who to root against, but then it became very clear, her.
But even when she shows up, she's got like the faceless henchmen and stuff. I was like, oh, this is the bad guy. This is the actual bad guy.
She was kind of cool at first, though.
Well, she was like tough. But yeah, even when she shows up, I'm like, no. But so when we do the time skip, what's happening is we eventually we see Jinx shows up on an airship, and she's like totally effing up these people. She's there's a new thing that's going to start moving through the streets called Shimmer. Shimmer is creating a whole bunch of negative side effects everywhere, right? Yeah. And then Jinx and Vi end up kind of against each other. Vi gets brought into the Enforcers. Now, in the game, Vi's always in the Enforcers, and her and Jinx aren't sisters. That's why people who play the game are like, no, make that canon now, please. But they eventually come across each other again, and this time they're at odds. So the family completely breaks in that series of episodes. And then when we get to the end of it, what's happened is, even though Jinx is trying to win Vi back over and show her like, hey, no, we can actually fix this, Vi is very resistant to it, and she develops a relationship with Caitlin Kierman, which I loved. I loved how because for the first time, Vi has someone who is her equal that she can be vulnerable around. And that's the thing that she's really looking for, is a place to put her vulnerability, which she doesn't show to anyone else ever, right? She doesn't feel like she can. And so Jinx becomes highly jealous of this. Inevitably, Jinx has like this big showdown. She's got Caitlyn tied up, and she's like, Vi, you can't pick this person. If you pick this person, you're not picking our family. Vi's like, you're crazy. And then Jinx launches a rocket at the end of season 1 into the giant tower at the top of Piltover, essentially breaking any hope that anybody had of solving anything, which is what it turns out they were trying to do in the tower at the top of Piltover.
I really liked that moment.
It was great. Because you're like, oh wait, there's no hope. Nope, she's gonna launch that missile, and that's how season 1 ended, and that was a huge cliffhanger.
Yeah, it was.
And then we waited 2 years for season 2, which 3. Is fine.
It came out. Season 1 came out in 2021.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so we waited 3 years for season 2. I didn't even know. But yeah, no. So season 2 comes out, and it begins immediately in the aftermath of that missile going off. And that's where we start to see people showing what season 1 kind of had this, it had a theme of like, what are the lengths that you're willing to go to find the thing that you want, right? But under that was like, what does the thing that you want exercise on the world around you? Is it control? Is it a family? Is it, like, how do those exercise their own functions in the world around you? Victor, are you trying to heal yourself? Okay, cool. Well, are you working with chaos? All right. Well, that might just fuck everything up, and it does. Yep. Victor does kill the one, like, person who actually cared about him accidentally. We should mention that, in a lab explosion.
Sky.
Yep, Sky. So then season 2 starts really amping up that whole idea of perfection, pursuit, and progress. Like,
you know what? Oh,
yeah.
Sorry, you just reminded me of this
moment.
You're good. I really liked the moment. Speaking of Victor and Sky, this was one of the things that the more I thought about it, the more I liked.
Yeah.
Victor, there's a moment when Victor's a kid and Sky's
Yep.
a kid, and he has this little boat that has like a wind-up thing, and it's an invention that he made. Oh, I get the impression that he made it. I feel like it's hinted that he's made it. And so Sky's like up on this rock and she's above him, and there's the river, and then he's down below, and she's interested in him. She's looking at him. She's interested in him, and he looks back at her, but instead he goes back to his invention and he winds it up and he puts it in the water, and it starts going down the stream. And what I like about that is when you watch that scene, it looks like a little boy that's obviously crippled chasing after his boat. The boat gets away and then he falls and trips over, right? But what I realized that was when I was like marinating more on the show is that was Victor's invention, just like the hex gates, and his body isn't able to keep up with his invention. His invention is getting further and further and further away from him. And I thought that moment that, you know, Sky was interested in him, but he didn't take advantage of it. He was too focused on his work. And the same thing happened later, but it actually cost Sky her life. But then as the story continues and Victor becomes this like being, you see Sky in there with him when he's in this like, you know, space kind of background. You know, he's created a version of Sky in there with him. But I like that whole, his invention was too fast for him. It outran him because his body and his ailments couldn't keep up. And I just really liked that.
Later in the lab. Yeah,
exactly. It's really that again, another parallel, another like, I don't know if you call it metaphor or foreshadowing or whatever you want to call it. Like, I really liked that. And then he also stumbles and meets the evil doctor whose name is Singed.
Singed.
Yeah. Weird that he gets the happiest ending out of everybody.
I mean,
he has no consequences for his actions.
No, there are definite consequences.
Not for him. I mean, he gets his daughter back. But anyways.
Yeah, he does. But ultimately, okay, so and then it shows like, but even looking at Singed, right? Like he's a smaller character, but he has a lot of big events that occur. Like he's the one who turns Vander into Warwick. He finds Vander after the explosion and does experiments on him. Now his character in the game is known for experimenting on animals and humans, and sometimes a mix of both. That's where Warwick comes from. In the games, he has bandages on his face because Warwick messed him up when he was transforming. In the show, he kind of just already is like messed up, right?
He got blown up in the beginning.
Yeah, he got blown up in the beginning. Yeah. So, but it turns out all he's trying to do is find a way to cure his daughter, right? Yeah. And then, like, I think here it's probably worth to jump forward. So we've got the development of these characters. We've got Mel, Caitlin, Jace, Victor, Heimerdinger, Echo, Jinx, Vi. Like,
there's a lot of
so many characters going on. There's so many different perspectives. But the big thing that comes through in the second half of this show is, because it's done, they've wrapped up this story. They're going to do 3 spin-offs, which we can talk about later. But like, there's going to be spin-offs, but it's not going to be to the level that Arcane was. No. So what they do the second half of the show is there are 2 storylines that really highlight where the show's going. Like, everything else is kind of happening on the side, and it's all very interesting and very in-depth, and if you want to watch the show, I highly recommend it. But really, Jason, Victor, and then Echo and Jinx.
Yes.
And those are the 2 big things that are going on in that world. Caitlin and Vi definitely have a thing going on where, like,
they take a little bit of a backseat, though.
Yeah, but they do take a backseat. So Jason, Victor, what eventually happens is in batch 2, season 2 of this, they interact with the anomaly, which is essentially a giant hex gate. It's a wild rune. It's whatever you want to call it. It's all of these different things. It's infinite potential. And it seemingly drops Jace into a future where he has failed. Mm-hmm. And it drops Heimerdinger and Echo into a past where everything is fine, and apparently there are no Jace or Victor.
Okay, so okay. Now this,
it's really good.
Now that's episode 7, and this is the one that really changed my opinion on the show. And I want to talk about the Echo storyline in that. So
hit me.
He gets transported into what appears to be like modern day, like same. It doesn't look like it's the past to me. It looks like everybody's the same age. It's just, this is the world where when they did the heist, instead of the building exploding and, you know, all of the, like the Piltover going after the people from the lanes, Vi dies, and that is the only difference. Vi dies, but everything else is the same. Silco and Vander make up. Echo gets a relationship with Jinx. Milo and Clagger are still alive. Like, everything is perfect, except for the fact that Vi is dead and there's no hex gates, right? And what I love about this whole thing is that, okay, well, let me say this. My only complaint with the show is still the fact that I wish in the first 3 episodes of season 1, this is such a nitpick, so I understand, but I wish there would have been a moment where it was implied that Echo had a crush on Powder. I just wish that would have been implied because, and again, this is totally nitpicking. I think that the story still works.
I don't think he did back then, though.
Well, that's why, and that's the thing is, it was a little weird to me at first that when he goes to this alternate world, he's in a relationship with Jinx or Powder still technically. And I think that works and it makes sense because they're about the same age. But for me, as somebody who loved Echo as a character, I would just think it would have been kind of cool to see a moment where like maybe Vi or Milo's picking on him for like thinking Powder is cute and he's all like embarrassed about it because that adds a little bit of extra weight to that character. Because essentially
a little bit, but I actually think it.
And I mean, like I said, this is a nitpick, so like potato, honestly.
I think it does a good job of showing just how compatible they are when it's not Jinx, and right? I think like when when given the opportunity, they're compatible.
And I agree.
Right?
And
that's what I think is really going on there.
Right. And like I said, that little thing that I wish was there is that's just for me. But I like that thing because, you know, he's given this world that's everything he wanted. You know, Echo's character has said like he's dreamt of I keep calling it the underworld, but like he's dreamt of the lanes being this way.
Zon.
Thank you. Zon being this way. And what I loved about it is, you know, ultimately he uses Jinx, who's, you know, an inventor and a tinkerer as well. Heimerdinger is there. Heimerdinger, quote unquote, sacrifices himself, but I did some research on his type, because he was my second favorite character. He apparently like is immortal, so he's probably still alive.
Quote unquote immortal. Yeah.
But you know, he helps Echo create the anomaly again because, like you said, if Jace and Victor are in this world, they didn't create the Hex Gates, right? So maybe they're out there, but we don't know. And in the end, you know, Echo goes back to his own timeline, and there's that moment where you see, you know, our Echo and Powder's Echo, and she kind of looks at him, and then he disappears. Yeah. And what I thought was so fucking tragic and beautiful about all of that is anybody else given that opportunity probably would have stayed. I think that there's a ton of characters. I think that Vi would have stayed. I think Jace would have stayed. I think, to some extent, I think that maybe Mel would have stayed. Yeah. But Echo, like that world had everything that Echo wanted except for Vi. Whereas the other world had everything that Echo didn't want, but it had Vi. And I've heard some people say, like, well, Echo and Vi's relationship wasn't that strong. I think it was. I think it was stronger than people realize because the weight that Echo as a character carries, if you really wanted to point fingers at anybody for whose fault this is, it's Echo's, because he's the one that overheard the guy that had the place. He's the one that told Vi about the place to rob. You know, like if Echo hadn't heard any of that, they wouldn't have gone to the place to rob. They wouldn't have gotten involved with Jace. You know, none of this stuff would have happened. And
well, that's the parallel between Echo and Jinx, is that they both tend to take things upon themselves and take like responsibility, right?
And so that's why
that's why he goes back.
And that's why I love the moment where right before he goes back, him and Jinx are dancing. Yeah. And Jinx is dancing like her mom.
Cool thing about that moment, really cool. One, Jinx is dancing like her mom. Two, the Z drive that they create, which is what Echo uses in the games. I have played League of Legends Wild Rift, by the way, which is fun.
Goes back.
We should actually play it sometime. But no, it's fun. It's like a short thing. You play like little 20-minute matches. Like it's so much better than super long ass League of Legends matches. But anyway, so you're. In that scene, they create the Z drive, which can bring Echo back 4 seconds in time. That scene is animated in 4 frames per second.
Yes.
So
I noticed that too.
So good. And like that was awesome.
And real quick, because I know I'm getting kind of stuck on the Echo, but like that episode is my favorite episode.
No, it's the best episode. It's the best episode.
And then, you know, while that's all happening,
Jace is
going through his own thing. He falls down a cavern.
Jace is eating perfected beings in an apocalyptic wasteland where he failed. But we find out at the end of that he failed, and then he's confronted by a hooded figure who, if you've been paying attention at all this entire time, you're like, oh, it's Victor.
It's Victor.
Like you're like, oh, the hooded guy is Victor. But what I actually when I was watching that, I didn't fully, and I think the 3 years difference probably prevented this, but I didn't fully connect. I was like, oh, Victor's the hooded guy from the first fucking scene that saves Jace when he and his mom are dying in the cold because he gives him a rune. Like, that's the whole fucking thing. And then when they reveal, like, this is probably the biggest piece. Echo goes back, and he's essential to this timeline.
Yes.
And it's so glad that he goes back because he recognizes that he wants to do good. He wants to create in his world what he saw in the other. So instead of seeing it and going, I'll stay here, he goes, no. This is what I want for my world. So he goes back, but Jace essentially... He goes into this apocalyptic future, but he's actually, I would say he was brought there by Victor. I think Victor, like, when you see that version of him that's talking with Jace, he can control time. Like, he definitely is fucking with shit. And he's been there a long time, and it actually shows you all the different times eventually that he's given Jace a rune. And the first time it's actually worked the way that it's worked and worked well at all. And well is like a very iffy word to use there, but like it seems to be working, like whatever's going on, and it's because he gave him the acceleration rune. So Jace goes back and just starts immediately doing everybody favors. He's like, I'm going to blast a hole through Victor. I'm going to start fixing everything. First off, Jace becomes, like, in my mind, he becomes both a really great and bad character at the same time, which is amazing.
Yeah, he
right?
does.
He becomes a true anti-hero. Like, he breaks his own leg. He's eating these weird, like, hive mind beings, like, to survive, right? And then he goes back and he's just like, I'm going to fuck everything up because that's what needs to happen now. And he blasts Victor, but then Victor realizes when he sees that, he's like, oh, yeah, no, humanity, like the emotions that bring us to our greatest are just the other side of the coin of the emotions that bring us to our worst. They're the same. He's like, I need to get rid of that choice. So that motivates Victor to then, once he's repaired by Singed, big time small character. Once he's repaired by Singed, he starts force evolving everybody. Now, his character in the game, he's all about glorious evolution, right? He wants everybody to become a hive mind. That's like his thing in the game. But in this show, it's because he's motivated by the actions of Jace to do so. And they were friends when they were kids. And it just continues the juxtaposition of the two until eventually, at the climax of the show, our hero, Echo, comes in to beat the shit out of all these automatons, these evolved sentient beings that were once other people of Zon and Piltover that have been taken over by Victor, right? Because Victor's becoming an evolved being, this like crazy form of consciousness, and he's trying to unite the world into one thing. And Jace can see this because he's like, part of his consciousness is floating in that potential future with all these. I mean, let's be honest. Like, you look at that future where that evolved being is, and it's very peaceful. Like, there's nothing, like, there's no chaos. There's nothing. Going back to what Victor said, the price of perfection is the loss of pursuit. There's nothing to pursue anymore.
Yeah.
They're just hanging in space. Why would you go anywhere else? Everyone's of one mind. And it's not that they're all of Victor's mind. It's that literally every mind is connected. So what's the point in even doing anything anyway? You're just a being existing, hanging in that space. And that's what Victor eventually is looking for, but it's not what anybody else would want as a being that has, like, you know, free will and stuff like that. And so Powder has like this crazy, amazing final fight. Cool moments to mention. While Victor and Jace are fighting, they blast between Vi and Warwick, who are fighting, because Warwick has lost all of his humanity at the same time Victor loses his. When Victor gets blasted, both of them lose their humanity, right, in a symbolic way. Warwick was Vander, and he's getting fixed, and they're trying to fix his consciousness, and then when Victor gets blasted, all that goes out the window. So he and Vi are fighting. Jinx, Vi, and Warwick had one perfect family moment where, like, Warwick was actually a human, kind of human again.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sweet to see that. But now, like, Warwick is obviously of the greatest danger to the two of them and, like, trying to hurt Jinx. And so Vi is fighting Warwick for Jinx. Eventually, Jinx sacrifices herself and Warwick, and Vi is left in the wake
Jinx's
of that
little
decision.
Girl, Isha?
Isha.
Yeah.
What about her?
Well, no, she's the one that sacrifices herself because Jinx finds her and the little girl looks up to Jinx, and she's the one that ends up shooting Warwick and dying.
Yes,
and then Jinx, Vi gets knocked out, and then Jinx surrenders herself and gets arrested.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so then, and then in that fight, you've got Victor and Jace. They blast up to the top where we saw them in the post-apocalyptic place, right?
Yeah.
And they're fighting each other. Echo comes to save the day, eventually going back more than 4 seconds, which we saw previously would have horrible...
Oh, you jumped to 2 different fights. My bad. You are...
Yeah.
So...
That's what I'm talking about, the final fight with Warwick.
Oh, because I thought you were talking about when Jace comes... I apologize.
No. When Jace comes back, Isha sacrifices herself to save Jinx and Vi.
In the final fight,
I skipped
Jinx
over Isha.
Herself.
I skipped over Isha because, like, Isha's a really great side character, but she just goes to show you what Jinx's effect has on the people of Zaun, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so Jinx's effect is, and she's actually a parallel to Jinx. She's this innocent version of Jinx who understands what it takes to keep a family together and recognizes herself as the necessary sacrifice to save the person that she wanted, which is what Jinx and Vi could never do for each other. Yeah. So we have that, but then we go forward and Jinx eventually sacrifices herself to save Vi, much the same way that Isha sacrificed herself to save Jinx and Vi. And then you've got Jace, Victor fighting each other. Echo comes along. He reverses time fast enough that, like, he blasts away all these perfected beings. And then Jace does the one thing that he and Victor have never been. The end of this show shows you that each person is finally able to make the decision they were never able to make. Jinx the entire time is like, I should have never existed. Like, I shouldn't be born. I'm just a Jinx. Nobody likes me. Nobody cares. But then she realizes that she can actually be of importance to a singular person, and it's the person who matters the most to her. And then Victor in the, like, celestial space that he's created as this evolved being is handed the acceleration rune by Jace. Jace essentially gives him the trust he never gave him earlier, right? And so the trust is the thing that eventually moves the world forward and creates a better space for everybody who survives the incident that's going on. But ultimately, what's happening in that time is, like, everybody's making the choice they weren't able to make the entire time. So it took 18 episodes to make the quote-unquote right choice for a lot of these characters. And then, I mean, personally, like, you know, just wrap it up, I don't think Victor and Jace are dead.
No,
I think they're just somewhere in space and time. Yeah, I don't think Jinx is dead. Like,
that airship at the end is very reminiscent of the first episode when she says she wants to ride in one.
Yep. Well, and the airship actually has the same symbols on it that her helmet did in the first episode.
Yeah, she's still alive.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
The only ones that are guaranteed dead are Ambessa.
Oh, she's so dead.
Vander.
Yep.
Silco.
You mean Warwick.
All the same.
Well, Silco's been dead.
And those counselor people that died.
Yeah, and all the counselor people who were important but also not important.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really, like, at the end of it, you get a hopeful message, but it's, like, tinged with a little bit of despair.
Always.
And I really enjoy that. Like, it reminded me of, like, some of the better moments in the earlier Marvel phases where things were truly, like, gray endings, right?
Yeah.
There wasn't so much black and white. It wasn't so much we've defeated the bad guys. It's more so like, all right, well, we survived, but at what cost?
Always at what cost.
Yeah. And so I thought that was good. And really, like, thinking back on it, there's so much to it. We could have done, like, a deep dive, right?
We should
Arcane.
still. We probably should.
Yeah, we should at some point.
Yeah.
But overall, I think it was a masterpiece. I think it goes to show you that if you just, like, you can make quote unquote video game content that is deep and human and meaningful and thematic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, what's your jam?
I'll keep this quick because obviously not a lot this week.
You gotta go see Wicked.
Well, I'm going to see Wicked again.
Right now.
Moana 2 obviously was one of my jams. But Shabuzi, who I know, he had an album come out earlier this year. I know for the most part.
He had that one song that everybody played.
See, and that's not even my favorite song from that album.
Yeah.
I like the song Finally Over. As we talked about with that album, I think there's hits and there's misses on it. But he came out with a song that I believe is a hit. It's called Good News. And it's very reminiscent to our artist friend Donnie, who the F is Donnie, from upstate New York.
Yep.
It's just a really good song. It's a single. I liked it. Outside of everything else we've talked about this week, that's the only other thing that's new to me. So
that's it?
Well, because, I mean, I watched 2 seasons of Arcane. I watched Moana 2. And I watched a movie called The Ice Road on Netflix for Magnum Opus with Liam Neeson. But I'm not going to talk about that because I'm making a video on it. So, what is your jam?
My jam, I got 2 quick ones. Dune Prophecy, throwing down. I love Dune Prophecy. It's amazing. Episode 2 came out this week. Travis Flamel, killing it. I can't wait for the next episode tomorrow. It's really good, and it's taking place 10,000 years before the events of Dune, so it's like a prequel series.
It looks really good.
But it's just like, it's everything that you know and love of the Dune universe without being so like centric around the same ideas and characters, right? And there's names that you hear and you're like, but you know, and even the main character's last name is Harkonnen. But that's just great, and it like doesn't always come to light how important that is. Like, a lot of times you're just watching the characters interact. I think it's really, really good. I think every actor in the show is impeccably cast and doing very well. I think the visuals of the show are amazing, very similar to Arcane. The visuals are amazing, and they just serve to elevate the storytelling, and the storytelling itself is rich and deep enough that it doesn't matter anyway. And then I did want to throw down Coltrane, artist Coltrane, spelled Coltrane, released an EP called Hamartia, which is absolutely beautiful and lovely, and I've been loving listening to that at least once a day because it's like a little EP. Yeah, it's not very long. Probably I think 5 or 6 songs total, but just like real good, real down tempo, little R&B, kind of chill vibes. Like, yeah, I've been digging that a lot. It's been good, man.
Nice.
Yeah, man. So are you gonna sing when you go to see Wicked right now? Is that your plan? Are you gonna just get into the theater and start singing?
No.
You know, it's funny. A lot of the people that I've come across are like, I'll go see it in theaters once people aren't singing, and I was like, dude, theater kids are the least likely to sing. Like, proper theater kids are not singing in this. If anything, they're gonna shush you the fuck down.
And theater kids are already done seeing this. They saw this on opening day.
Well, and not only that, like, theater kids go to the theater where you don't sing, like, during the whole show. Like,
let me see.
They're the least likely. The people who are going to sing are TikTok influencers who are probably filming themselves during the showing. No, I don't know.
My theater is full for a 9:15 showing.
Goddamn.
Yeah, look at that.
That's wild. Dude, that's wild. It's honestly one of the best movies of the year.
Dude,
I hope you enjoy it.
Wild? So, sorry, not to interrupt you.
Yeah, hit me.
It is one of the best movies of the year, but I'm going to end on this note. Last night, I had this, speaking of The Rock, I had this moment. It was like 7:35, and I was like, maybe I should go see another movie. And so I looked up Red 1 times, and there was one at 7:50, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll go see Red 1, and I'll mention it briefly on the podcast.
Yeah.
Dude, the theater was full. All the showings for Red 1 this weekend are full.
Wow.
That make sense.
Know, it's a big holiday release weekend. Like, a lot of people go to the movies on Black Friday or, you know, the Saturday after Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving was packed.
Well, when you think about it, all those families are together, and some people, that's their tradition on Thanksgiving or Christmas is to go to the movies.
I usually do that because I'm usually by myself on holidays.
Well, there you go. That's how it goes.
All right. Well,
that's it.
Next week.
I hope you go defy some gravity.
I'm gonna go get popular.
Do it. Go get popular and defy some gravity, baby. Maybe kick a wizard in the chest. That doesn't happen.